if you were thinking about Dave Kayani in your mind, and then he arrived.
Ta-da!
This guy. How you doing, Dave?
What's up, my man?
I'm very good.
What are we talking about?
Well, it's just a great place to hang out. All right, let's get you on this one. Do you prefer art that is exactly like what it's meant to look like, or something a little bit more abstract?
Movement in art for me is...
Oh, right, okay. So not even so you don't want to look at a picture?
No.
We're outside a museum. I thought, art.
I mean, let's think about it. You can look at a picture, but a painting, but you might as well look at a picture. But what a painting can do, it can bring that to life. It can have movement within it, I think.
Okay, so movement with it, like when they suggest movement in the paint.
Yeah, and for me, that's beauty. Art to me can be uplifting. It can be something that uplifts the soul and takes us to another place. And when it's too abstract, you can call anything art, right? But for me, I see a real talent in when something looks very similar to the real thing but has movement.
Okay. Would you rather have a really accurate oil painting done of yourself, or a really funny caricature of yourself?
An oil painting, of course.
Oil painting. Okay.
God created me to look like this.
Yeah.
And I think he did a good job.
Has he finished the job?
I mean, it's a work in progress, but yeah, we'll see.
We're getting there.
How about you?
I originally would have preferred the accurate one, but I'm coming round to this idea that art can be more than just like accurate or anatomically correct. Like I think I was quite good at art when I was a kid, and I would try and draw the picture that actually, I tried to make it look like the thing I'm drawing, and I would be a little bit critical of other kids who would draw stick men, because men don't look like that. But if it tells the story, maybe that's good enough.
It's like anything. What's its purpose? I'd argue that everything, as a believer in a greater source or whatever, I think everything has its heaven. Everything's heaven is fulfilling its potential, and it comes down to what do you believe that potential of that particular work is. So if the potential of a piece of art is to try and get across the actual essence of it, then fine. Maybe to get the spirit across, that's something different.
Yeah, getting the spirit across, that's a good one. Let's have a look at the comment. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. We've got Jimmy K in here, who I have to say made some negative comments about some of our videos, and it came across as a little bit of a hater. And he described Saj Gotti as cringy. But there you go. That's
okay. Well,
glad that you're still watching, Jimmy K. Thank you. What do you think of Dave Kayani?
Jimmy K, you could be a wise man right now.
Yeah.
What are you going to say? Are you going to make me sleep well at night, or are you going to be mean? I do like the fact that Jimmy has come back, though.
Jury's out. Okay, he's being honest.
J to the K is sitting on the fence on this one.
Jimmy K. I've got a joke for you.
Go for it.
What do you get if you cross Jimmy Carr and Peter Kay?
A hater?
Peter Carr.
Hey.
Yeah.
What does Jimmy K do? Do you know where Jimmy K's come from?
No, I don't know.
Could he be the next best thing since? I don't want to say since sliced bread, because I think there's better things since sliced breads that have come out.
We need to update that.
Yeah.
What is the best thing, the new best thing since sliced bread? So people can stop saying since sliced bread.
Could it be since YouTube, maybe?
Yeah.
Is that the next best thing? I mean, sliced bread, I don't think was such a great advancement for our civilization.
What? They should bring out ready toasted bread.
Yeah.
I've got a riddle for you.
Go on.
You know toasters, right?
Yeah.
All right. Hit you with this one. What do you put into the toaster if you're a pervert?
Your hand.
Yes.
Your hand.
No, it's toast. You put toast in there.
It's going back to art now that we're speaking of art.
Yeah,
and
we're outside the V&A.
I'm excited that Jimmy has joined us. Really, yeah, art for me, I've always found rubbish and a waste of time. And the reason is because I was bad at it. And I think sometimes based on our skills, our interactions with things, we make judgment.
I think Jimmy K might be bad at being in videos, and that's why he's hating on other people's videos.
Maybe he's brilliant.
Well, maybe, yeah.
But he's not doing it.
Okay.
You are doing this. You're out here doing this. You get to it. Jimmy K, I feel he's a talented man in some things. No one necessarily knows what their talents are. But maybe one day. Jimmy, why don't you let us know?
Yeah, what are you good at, Jimmy? What can you teach us? And it's funny, like, Julie's out now. I rate Julian. Thank you very much, Jimmy. That's very kind. The most peaceful people I came across have been artists. That's from Dardasha. Peaceful people?
Yeah. I mean, I think anyone involved in being creative is peaceful because I think it calms you down, right?
Yeah, it's a good... What's the word when you use
Tranquil?
something? No, but when you use something to get your anger out. Well, not anger. It's therapeutic. It's
calming.
Cathartic. Cathartic.
Yeah.
That's the word I'm looking for.
What does the word? I don't know what. Was there a particular path this video's going on? I don't want to.
Well, no. I was summing up what I encountered in Speaker's Corner today, and then I got onto art, and we were talking about art last night. So you're not derailing anything. I also was talking to a guy today who mentioned that. Going back at a tangent now, that the Arabic language spread in North Africa, but it didn't spread in, for example, Persia, other parts of the Muslim world. He thinks there were Arabs already in North Africa. That was the most interesting. It will show you what kind of day I had in Speaker's Corner today. The most interesting thing I came up with was how come North Africa speaks Arabic, but other parts of the Muslim world don't.
Interesting.
Don't
really have much to say on that. I mean, my knowledge on that's not any greater than the average man on the street.
Yeah, well, it was...
Providing the average man on the street doesn't know much about it, they may do. I think Jimmy would do.
Yeah, well, any street that Jimmy's standing on, the average IQ is it's right up there. And Kamil Kellner is in the chat. Hello, Kamil. And Dardasha saying they need an Arabic teacher like me. Yeah, if you want Arabic lessons and you are not in the Arab world, speak to Dardasha.
It's funny you should say that. I've just started learning Arabic, inspired by you, because every time I explain Julian to my friends, I explain how, and I don't want to embarrass you, but for those of you who are in the know, you'll know that he was the 2005 amateur UK boxing champion.
Well, you have to bring that up. Late 2005.
Late 2005, and
University level.
And then you're also you've done close. You've been a bodyguard, you've done security, you're an RE teacher, religious education, which is funny because...
Funny you say that. Is there anything I haven't done?
You've done a plethora of things and a fantastic DJ. But the thing I'm impressed with the most, I'm like, and he's learned Arabic.
On top
of all of that. So and people are really like, oh, wow. And they're like, so I have decided I want that O for myself. As much as I big you, I want some of that praise.
Yeah, the O.
Yeah, so I've started learning Arabic.
What have you learned so far?
So I've started learning some of the languages. So there's an app called Duolingo, who is not a sponsor yet of your show,
yeah.
but they teach you how to learn different. It's really the alphabet I'm trying to learn at the moment.
Okay.
So yeah, so it's
you'll be ahead of me if you learn how to read it.
Well, that's what I'm trying to learn how to read, because being Iranian. Our alphabet, we have 30. No, I can't read that, but we have 32 letters. The Arabs have 28, I believe. So I thought, let me try and understand, try and learn. Because how do we break down barriers at the end of the day? All these different barriers that we have, it's through understanding. It's by really tapping in and understanding what's what. So, I would like to learn Arabic and figure out what the best way to do it is.
Well, I say for a Iranian or Persian speaker, go through and find out all the words you already know that you don't know you know, because there's a lot of overlap, a lot of vocabulary. That's it. Although Iranian is a Indo-European language and not a Semitic language, there's a lot of Arabic vocabulary that has found its way in there. Yeah. Learn Farsi first. He's already learned Farsi. And he's already learned English and Chinese.
My and Spanish, but let's not talk about that. I think, my mum was from Isfahan and Tehran. My dad was from Shiraz and Yazd, but I was born and raised in the UK. So my Farsi has been learnt from other friends who speak Farsi, who also speak it badly. So I've picked up their bad habits. But I want to learn Farsi. I want to learn Arabic, Mandarin, as you say. They say that Chinese when they say Chinese, referring to Mandarin and Cantonese, actually, a very difficult language to learn. To be honest, it's not. It's a tonal language, and that's where you get difficult with it.
How different is Cantonese from Mandarin?
How different is English from Italian? That's the answer to that.
Yeah. Very different, but quite similar. Well, Indo-European.
So you'll find that there are some roots that may be the same or whatever. Now, Cantonese is one of so there's 56 different minorities in China.
Yeah.
Cantonese is from the Canton region, which is one of them. In Hong Kong, they speak it. In the south, in Shenzhen, they speak it. Yeah. We seem to think that there's 2 languages, but there's actually 56. And Mandarin is actually, it literally means, Putonghua means common language. So it's one language being created for all people to learn, basically.
Yeah. And there's Ammar Hussein. Thank you very much. It was great to meet you today. There's a guy from Slough who knows our friend, Ibra. Very well.
Ibs, yeah. Let's just say a bit of boxing has happened between some of us.
Yeah, we've all done,
good lad.
Between the 3 of us. There's been a lot of boxing done.
Boxing has been done.
Yeah. So Cantonese is just another one of those Chinese minority languages, but it's the one we've heard of because Hong Kong was the part of China that Britain ruled.
Yeah, I mean, so Hong Kong, which is Xiangang, which means fragrant port, actually, is what it literally means. Yeah, because they had a lot of the trading there, a lot of the wealth. So you'll see people in China will be either really from Hong Kong, a place called Fujian. Khuban merci. Thank you, Abdullah. So I've been asked how I am, and I'm responding, I'm well.
Good.
But yeah, so people from Fujian or people from Hong Kong would have come over to the UK and set up the businesses. That's why to us, really, we know Cantonese and Mandarin. But Mandarin, Putonghua is the common language. It's for all of them. So
a bit like Punjabi is probably a widely known Indian language, but in India it's actually a minority language.
Or Scousers.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Someone mentioned today that Hong Kong is as Chinese as Beijing. Is that fair to say?
What do you mean by Chinese? I mean, I think if you say Reading's as British as London, what do you mean by British? What are the parameters? They're very different places. There's generally a lot of racism coming from the people of Hong Kong to the mainland Chinese. They say that mainland Chinese people are loud, they're rude, they spit, they do all sorts of things. So I've encountered quite a bit of racism.
Against people from Hong Kong?
Against people from mainland.
So Hong Kongers are looking down on mainland
people? Hong Kong has made it in the sense of the word of, financially, it's
that because it was ruled by Britain for so long?
It is indeed. Also, I mean, it was a port, like I said. So it was a port and... a lot of trade went on back and forth with the people of Hong Kong, so they do look down. Also, you do get a lot of the people from mainland coming over, gambling a lot in Macau. Macau being another island just about 30 miles away from Hong Kong. So, but yeah, I mean, China is the size of a continent, essentially. So when you're saying China, what is being Chinese?
In terms of the government and the government's right to exercise power in Hong Kong, as I understand it, when Hong Kong rejoined China in 1997, there was like a little, in brackets, but we'll still get to do our own thing, right?
There's 5 major cities in China, which China's a communist country, but they have capitalistic traits. So these 5 cities have slightly different rules, as does Hong Kong. There are tensions, and to be honest, I haven't been back to China for a couple of years now, so I'm not too well.
Okay.
Yeah.
But from what I understand, those freedoms are being respected. China has let the Cantonese in Hong Kong operate a capitalist system while they have it's not really communism, is it, anymore?
Well, they call it communist with Chinese characteristics, is what they call it. So I lived in a small city called Chengdu, which is 14 million people in. Skyscrapers, I think more than New York, basically. So in a sense, you could look at it and say, no, that's capitalistic, but obviously the head government is in charge, really. Interestingly enough, the number 4, and you may know this, Julian, is Si in Chinese, and Si means death.
Oh.
So the American embassy in Chengdu is on this road, and the number starts at number 4. there's no number 1, 2, or 3, and they gave it to the Americans, and it's a bad luck number meaning death, which the Chinese found quite funny. The Americans didn't know, yeah.
Wow.
But this was a while back.
On Death Road.
Exactly on that. Exactly.
Road records. That's like the British Embassy in Tehran is famously on Bobby Sands Street.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be a political bias. On the Chinese issue, for a long time we kept hearing about Tibet and Tibet wanting to be an independent part of China or be independent from China. As far as I know, Tibet is as Chinese as Beijing, as Reading is as Chinese as London. What's the argument for independence for Tibet?
I, who am someone who considers myself Chinese, don't know anything about this.
No problem.
I think a lot of what you talk about is monitored and it is tracked. What I can tell you about Tibet is that when we think of Tibetans, we think of very peaceful people. Well, this is certainly what I thought of. I think people are wanting you to talk about
don't worry about
the events of the day, but we'll crack on.
We'll talk about what we want, and you watch it if you want.
But in short, when it comes to Tibet, some of the most powerful people in China are the Tibetans. Some of the most dangerous people as well. Along with money comes power.
Does that make people jealous? Does that make them discriminated against for that reason?
There are tensions in where I live in Chengdu, which is right next to Tibet. We have loads of Tibetans. I have lots of Tibetan friends, but there are definitely tensions between them. And they say, you don't upset the government in China. You don't upset the club owners because it's mostly mafia-owned and the rest of it. And then the Tibetans are another thing. So they're a law unto themselves, in a sense.
The Tibetans are powerful people in China. Do you think the Tibetans are receiving help from outside forces? I mean, I know the Dalai Lama ran away to India, if I am correct, and some people say that the Dalai Lama is a thorn in the side of China, and certain Western powers that would like to bring China down are going to prop him up and help him and use him to stir things up. Is there a sense of that?
Honestly, in China itself, so firstly there are two...
I don't want you to get banned from China, by the way.
No. From what I understand, there are two Dalai Lamas. Okay. There are two kind of big ones. One of them's in China, one of them's obviously the Dalai Lama we know. His name is Tenzin. Something like 70% of Tibetan people are called Tenzin. So if you meet a Tibetan and you want to impress them, just say to them, you look like a Tenzin. And they'd be very impressed, male or female.
Okay.
But we don't really hear much about it in China. You have to understand the media is carefully selected, and that can be a good thing sometimes because nonsense gets through, but the issue of Tibet isn't really a thing we discuss in China.
Okay. And Tiananmen Square, don't even go there?
Beautiful square.
Okay.
Nothing happened as far as I'm aware.
Okay.
In China, in Tiananmen Square, yeah. Things have been peaceful and good.
Yeah.
And China is going from strength to strength.
Okay. And recently, we've heard a lot about the conditions for Muslims in China being very, very difficult. Did you ever sense any of that when you were there?
I heard about issues. I think the Muslims are based in the north, and there are some issues. Yeah, there are some difficulties.
The Uyghurs, The Uyghurs.
Right. There's a couple of different tribes, if you like, or minorities, I should say. But the Muslims are known mainly, so say in the UK, if you're hanging out with people who are quite ignorant and you mention Muslims, they may jump to this idea of, terrorism or just spirituality or, maybe good things, maybe bad things. There, the Muslims are known for food. Okay. So if you say the Muslims, it means kebabs, basically. Okay. So the average Chinese person is like, from what I've experienced, like, I get excited. Okay. But there are tensions, of course.
Well, we're hearing a lot about it, and the thought occurred to me that just as we're hearing about Hong Kong and the protest there, and there being a democracy movement there, but Hong Kong is part of China, just as Tibet is part of China, just as these Muslim regions are part of China. That's my biased left-wing leaning coming through. Meanwhile, in India, in Kashmir, the Muslim part of India, or a Muslim province of India, Jammu and Kashmir. It's had certain freedoms restricted, and the autonomy that was extended to it revoked. Article 370 has been revoked. But maybe Kashmir is part of India, is as Indian as Rajasthan or Delhi. Why should the Indian government not exercise their authority over Kashmir? Is that the other side of the coin?
Could well be.
Is it a flip of a coin?
Could well be. Honestly, I don't know too much about that situation.
Yeah, it's one of those things, you know, when you catch yourself out and you sort of prove yourself wrong. What I would say is, unlike Hong Kong, where the autonomy has been retained, where they have had this level of authority over themselves and the right to practice capitalism, free market, that's been retained. But in Kashmir, the autonomy that was promised when the country was split up has been taken away. But maybe governments have the right to exercise their authority. Must we leave the EU because 2 years ago the majority of people wanted to leave the EU and many of them are dead? I don't know.
The slim majority,
the
knows?
slim majority, the slim majority, but a majority of one is still majority. But the truth is still the truth, even in a minority of one.
This is it. The big, I mean, for me, one of the biggest things we need to try and figure out is what are our commonalities. And this is something that the media focuses on, our divisions, on the splits here, the blah 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 there, and it's important that we have our cultures retained, that we have our ways of living protected, and there's no discrimination. And that's something that I think people should fight for, and it's very important. But really, we need to build a world where we're looking at our commonalities. And a way of doing that is not just by reading it in print or whatever. You know, it's by, like yourself, you've been to Palestine, you've been to Pakistan, you've been to a number of different countries. And when you're there and you tap into what the locals are about, what the culture's about, you don't just then tolerate, you gain this understanding that's on another level.
Is it a good idea to do away with labels then? Should we stop, when we meet people, should we stop asking them personal questions like what country are you from, what religion are you? Because then we're just putting them in a box.
I think that's an absolutely ridiculous thing to do. I've heard this argument, get rid of labels. No, because we have labels. It's the way that you shouldn't put them into a box, that's right, but you need to know something about someone.
But you can take that too far. There's a experiment going on in Speaker's Corner where people sit down. It's a guy called IC3 who's running it. They sit down.
Policeman guy?
He looks, he's got a uniform on. He sits people down, but they are split into racial categories, and blacks and whites are sitting on separate sides. So he's big into labels and identifying people by that particular label. I mean, I know he's a great guy, I like him, but I think that's going too far, right?
That to me is just as ridiculous. It's another extreme. I don't think we should do away with labels. If I'm from Iran, yes, I'm Iranian, but I'm British born. What am I? I don't take offence to that. I don't think we should put people in boxes, but it's sometimes helpful to get an understanding. You're of an Irish background. You know, you're a teacher. You're a professional martial artist. You know, there are things. I believe you've got the Worlds maybe coming up. British champion, right here. But you know, you've got these things coming up. Yeah. Only by asking questions and finding out what it is you are, do I understand what your interests are and where we go. So I think to do away with labels is stupid. But how much do people lean on identity politics? Oh, you're a man, you're straight, you're white, you're this, you're that. I mean, it gets to a point where people are trying to build unity and trying to build a better world, but they do it by splitting people up, by putting you into different camps. You're a white male, you can't speak about race. You're gay, you can't, you know, or you're not gay, you can't do this, you can't do that. Yes, different people from different backgrounds should perhaps have more of a say over certain things. But I think once you start being divisive, and that's the way it's used, I mean, identity politics at the moment, things get crazy.
Did you see the Democrat conference where they had to interrupt it every 5 minutes for a point of privilege? and say, oh, can you just hold on? You're offending people of no gender, you're offending people of X, Y, Z, you're offending people that don't like too much noise, you're offending people that like noise. It got a bit much.
I haven't seen it. I can believe it.
Imagine.
I think it's definitely important we are aware of what we say and we don't offend. One thing, we're all prejudiced. We all have biases. We're all maybe a little bit racist, and by that it's like saying things based on someone's race. And I think it's important to understand that, to be aware, to have a dialogue about it. One thing I used to say without thinking of it, and I'll admit this, and I'm ashamed to admit this, when we're playing football, I'd say, right, the last person to run to that fence is gay. And I wouldn't associate it with homosexuals, but a friend pointed out to me that wasn't cool because I'm essentially implying that being gay is a bad thing. And that wasn't at all my intention. I didn't think of it like that, but it doesn't matter how I think of it. It matters what my words are and what I say.
Until how recently were you doing this?
About 2 years ago.
Oh.
And someone really pointed out to me, I was like, wow, you're right. And this was something that I was just saying and doing because in the UK it's a common thing, oh, that's gay, don't be gay, blah, blah, blah. But actually that is offensive. And I think people should be pulled up on things like that. And I've had to recognise in me that when I throw these things around, I should be a bit more careful.
Yeah, I do pick that one up in school. I always say we mustn't use that as an insult. But there's a fine line, isn't there? I remember the debacle when Danny Baker shared a picture of a monkey and he said it was the royal baby and people leapt on it as if it was racism. Was it racism or not? Definitely it was a very bad idea. But will there be a time in the future when we've gone so far away from racism and calling black people monkeys that no one will even think of associating that with racial insults anymore?
I think more than likely it will be. But the problem is we live in a society now where unfortunately this disease called racism does exist, and that's why we've got to be careful with what we say and what we do. But I don't think it's helpful to jump on someone and scream at them racism, racism, racism like they're some evil person, because I don't think that helps, actually. Because actually what it does is, in my opinion, it dilutes the real racist stuff that goes on.
Yeah.
Growing up as a kid, I was surrounded by racism. I was, being an Iranian kid in the UK, I was racist to every white person I saw. No, I'm joking. No, but there was racism against me, and it was horrible. And I had a lot of bad things happen, where like my head was smashed against the wall repeatedly by my by people being racist, and that wasn't cool. So when people get offended when someone says, oh, where's the toilets? And I turn around perhaps and I say, oh, it's opposite the black lady. And then they start calling me racist. It's like, no, pick what's racist, because if you start calling everything racist, it dilutes and actually undermines the real racist things.
Yeah, there was a moment today speaking to Andy Pandy, the mad Algerian guy from Speaker's Corner, who, when trying to explain that the original inhabitants of North Africa were black, he said, oh, they were black, like him, and pointed to a black guy, and the particular black guy really didn't like it. And it was an odd thing to say, and later on he came and spoke to me, he said, oh, I felt that was racist. But he is black, and they are black like that. But we're still in that era when it's odd or racist to point out that someone's black, like him, for example. Is that racism? Is that being too delicate, or should we? How can we get around that?
So what is, and this is, so having been in the States quite a lot, back and forth, New York, this idea, they've redefined what the word racism means. Okay. So they will say that black people cannot be racist. This is a very common thing in the States, where they say black people just can't be racist. Now, to me, racism is like sexism, where you judge someone based on their sex. That's a woman, therefore blah, 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 or that's a race, blah, 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 blah. Whereas their definition of it is a majority suppressing a minority. So because the blacks are a minority, they cannot be racist.
Can women be sexist, given that logic?
Well, they would say no.
Okay.
They would say no, again, given that logic. But my understanding is, it's based on, I'm going to make a judgment on you based on your race, and it's a negative one. And I think, so it depends what definition you're using. To me, pointing out that someone's black I would gladly say he's brown, he's white, he's black. That's right. Things are so crazy, in my opinion, that even on WhatsApp, you get different colours. You know, you can do the thumbs up. You get black ones and brown ones, and I have friends that always use the black ones and the brown ones, which I find ridiculous because white people are not yellow. And if the yellow one, who is the yellow one meant to be for? Is it meant to be for a race that has squinty eyes?
Well,
that's racist suggesting that. What the hell does this mean? They're cartoon things. I mean, how far do you want to take things?
White people are yellow on The Simpsons, aren't they?
They are indeed.
Seen as a generic sort of colour. Abdullah is saying, June, can we talk about Iran, Israel and America? I see it more useful to talk about these particular issues with an Iranian. Well, look, we could, but we were out of time. Jimmy Kay is saying, this is a very good interview, and a very good interviewer, thank you. Jimmy Kay, I appreciate your comment, and revisit the Saj videos, see if you get his humour. Dadesh is saying, you describe someone as he or she is or look. I think we're going a bit too far with this. Julian would make a good journalist. Thank you very much.
Julian is a good journalist.
Thank you very much. I get to be a good journalist. This guy is a good journalist. He has a video coming very soon. Jamal is going to edit it, and you can watch it soon. Plebeian Enforcement saying, don't pull the string. Mel Lai saying, thank you, I enjoyed this conversation. Yeah, so did I. I have to finish on a round number, so we're going to finish on 50, because I missed the 45-minute bus. So, Dave, you've got 2 minutes 30 to ask me any question you want, and I'll give you an honest answer.
Right, we're going to go into the slightly ridiculous.
Yeah.
If you could have any superpower in the world, what animal would you be and why?
Oh, what animal would I be? Cheetah. Am I actually the animal, or do I just have the powers of...
What animal, if you could be any animal in the world, what would you be? And, why?
And it can't be human being?
I mean, no.
Chimpanzee, then. They're our
racist.
Oh, see what you did
racist.
there?
Yeah.
Genetically, do you believe in evolution? Yeah. We've got 2 minutes, so we can talk about as many subjects as we want. Go. Do you believe in evolution? Yeah, good.
Is it evolution or is it evil illusion?
Evil illusion, exactly.
Of course, things evolve, but you can have a mixture of both.
Okay.
I don't think one thing rules out creation.
When's the world going to end?
Which world? I would argue the world has ended. The world as we know it has ended already.
There's a good answer.
We've entered a completely different world. Go back 200 years ago. What was the fastest form of transport? It was indeed... not a car screeching, it was a horse. Now look at it, things have flipped. We've entered a completely new world. The world as we knew it has ended.
Steve Jobs, it might not be Steve Jobs, but someone clever said if you'd asked people hundreds of years ago what kind of transport they'd like, they would have said faster horses.
There we are.
There you go. We've got 1 minute. What's your favourite fruit?
My favourite fruit is, so the tomato is a fruit. Is a vegetable trapped inside a fruit's body, or a fruit trapped inside a vegetable's body?
It's fruit fluid.
It's fruit fluid.
Tomato is the gender fluid vegetable fruit,
it's
right?
the gender fluid bisexual fruit. That would be my fruit vegetable of choice.
Yeah. That's just saying what's favourite colour. Mel Lai saying wolf or eagle would be cool, or how about a combination of both? Plebeian Enforcement is voting for passion fruit.
Oh, I like the passionate.
And
all fruits are one. To me, the skin doesn't dictate what type of what the insides are like.
Exactly. And you will know them by their fruits. This has been Lessons for Life. He has been Dave Carney, and he still is.
Buenas noches.
Adios. Again soon. We were here. We're gone. Laters.